Hello, thank you everyone and welcome to the session. And I will be, I think, continuing on the same notion as the previous speaker, talking about our experience as an embedded research support team within TU Delft and the computer science department. So before we get to that, let's give a bit of a context of why computer science within Delft and why we need support. Well, computer science within TU Delft is two departments, intelligent systems and software technology department. Together, they are composed of 15 sections or 15 research groups that are housing 400-something research staff from PhDs, postdocs, and all the way to professor, and 662 master students and some 1,500 bachelor students. And we are actually growing and growing quite fast. Our ambition is to grow as a university to some 40,000 students by 2035, which means we also need a lot of support in different aspects. Why an embedded team? Well, and why research engineering and infrastructure? Well, we like to provide some personalized and low barrier access to research support, people that you can see and hear and interact with live. This makes access to support really quite transparent to you, via diverse skill set and expertise that would cover everyone, especially within computer science. And the main idea here is that RSEs are shared among the various sections and research groups so that they're also able to develop as persons. This idea of sharing gives us a lot of mobility and then a lot of exposure to a lot and better understanding even to the needs across both departments. And for the RSEs, it provides stable non-academic career paths that are very attractive to many people who are not necessarily want to stick as an academic for their career. And thus we are REIT, Research Engineering and Infrastructure team. How are we made up? Well, typically, as a team, we have a leader, but then we have two of them because it's really two departments. Our two leads are associate professors and they are full academics running their own actually research groups, which mean we have a better sense of what are the needs across both departments actually. And this is, I think, one of the selling points that allow us to exist along with the central support teams that already exist within TU Delft. The leaders are responsible for collecting needs and understanding those needs across both departments and all sections, which means in terms of infrastructure, this translates to the acquisition of infrastructure, investigation of infrastructure that is of relevant to everyone. In terms of skill set, this translates into hiring priorities in the new RSEs that we are hiring. In projects, it translates into prioritization and also execution of projects. They're also responsible for us as RSEs in terms of coaching and mentoring and career development, but then also guarding work-life balance and ensuring that we are overall, let's say, happy in this environment. We have also Director of Research Infrastructure, and the idea behind this title is to ensure that infrastructure is emphasized within any discussion about research and research support. And in this capacity, the person, now it's one of the team leads, but then the idea is to really rotate between the two departments. The idea here is that the director would be the functional contact person between the researchers, their needs, ICT, and other external actors, whether they are hardware providers, whether they're cloud providers, the like. Infrastructure could be HPC, of course, but then also other specialized lab like our own capture lab. And then we have the team of RSEs. Today, we are 11 RSEs, and we are essentially the people who do the work and actually execute projects and what's not. Under this title, there is also responsibility to train researchers and convey best practices, whether this is HPC expertise, soft development, and others, and to institutionalize best knowledge, whether this is in CS research or even working with the infrastructure within departments and also elsewhere. And then we are also a bridge to other facilities within the university, so we route researchers to who to contact in which type of matters and what's not. How does our life look like? Well, we are embedded in offices throughout the CS buildings. Everyone has a fixed office, which means researchers can just simply walk into your office and then ask you and then get support quickly when they need it. For each RSE, if you are assigned to a specific project, then there is a host PI who's responsible for you. This means both leading at the technical level, but then also ensuring that you are socially embedded within this research group. This means, let's say, going out with a group in Borals and such activities. And the RSEs are typically rotated. The plan is really, because we are fairly young, the plan is to be rotated among the different sections between 6 months and to a 2-year maximum within a given section. And each week we have one weekly meeting. It's all hands-on. It's really the meeting where we are updated with projects, who's available, who's not, and which project we like to take on. Okay, now we know where we operate, how we operate, but then what's our guiding vision? Both research and education need support. Within CS, we already have a teaching team, so education is covered. But then what about research? Well, research in computer science is both the infrastructure, which is often provided as a service, let's say, by ICT services, as opposed to a partnership. It means there's oftentimes lack of dialogue between what the infrastructure does and what it can, and what the infrastructure actually can do, how people use it, between how best they can use it. So there's a big emphasis on infra from this perspective, but then also emphasis on software. Believe it or not, even within computer science, software is not exactly a first-class citizen. Sometimes it's really like a byproduct of research, not the main focus. It means we have many cases of adult software that we really like to do something about. Hence, we exist. As such, our scope is from general to specialized CS support. In terms of software development, this translates into reproducible science, and a big emphasis on this, from version control, open licenses, and the like. But then also in terms of supporting impactful research software tools. SpoofX that we mentioned here is a 10-year project, and the only reason it persists until today is that one of RSEs is actually actively developing, maintaining its existence, and actually further developing it. Infrastructure. Currently, we have two main infrastructure, the HPC resource, I will talk a little bit about more, but then also the Insight Capture Lab. This is a dual capture lab for different types of applications, from computer vision, body and gesture recognition, human robot and human interaction, and the like. And it's really aimed to be one of the largest 3 capture labs within Europe. It's a big infrastructure project that is aimed to support a lot of research, not just within CS, but then also in other departments as well. And we do this also via, while we have generalist people, we also have domain-specific people, some people who focus on AI, deep learning, and the like, and then also people who focus on with good expertise in computer graphics and visualization, then people who focus on big data and data-intensive research support, and then others with expertise in cybersecurity, Internet of Things, and blockchain. Our range of activities, well, it's again research support. This could be setting up or evaluating infrastructure for different types of research. It could be software development, like demos also, workshops. It could also be developing training materials and documentation, or even data collection and support in terms of running experiments. Things that we really said no to from the very beginning are teaching and administrative process, but then we still do enough of administration and management. How have we implemented this vision, and what is our progress? We are, like I said, we are a young team, about a year now, a year and 3 months to be exact, but then we still have managed to do something. We focused on 4 aims and needs, and I'm about to say how we did in each. The first aim, or the first need that we wanted to address, is executing project. We have actually until today more than 30 projects, of which 18 are very active today. But then why are these numbers? Because we have different tiers of support for people. There are the free walk-in sessions. Those would last less than 1 hour, and you could just walk into someone's office, get support free of charge. We have short projects that would last for up to 2 weeks. These are, again, also free. But then once we go to longer periods, 6 months and above, funding becomes either required or preferred. Funding means a fixed fee per month for an RSE, and typically it's 0.5 RSE for that duration. I think this is really still the standard, like many groups around here. But then how do people get support? Well, on rolling basis, we don't have calls. So it means if you have a need, you can just call us anytime. And call us means either you talk to one of us at any point, or you fill in some intake form. And then we do some assessment. Our criteria is as follows. How ready is this project, or how feasible is it actually? And is it feasible within this time period, or we need more? Or we don't have an idea and we need to do some evaluation of it. It's also a function of the RSE time available and the skill sets that you need, and whether or not, let's say, you would be willing to take on someone who is going to learn on the job. Funding is also a criteria, especially if you request support for a longer duration. And then also there is the researcher need and career stage. We give priority to younger researcher, to younger staff, let's say, so that they have better chances at promotion and those types of cool things. And then finally, there is the department strategy, and if there is a specific theme that the department is focused on, we try to be conscious of that. But it depends, of course, on how available we are at that point that we reach this point. Here are some examples from some sections that I will talk about. But then again, it's really, we are almost covering all of those 15 sections already. Those are examples from some of the active ones. CGV is the computer graphics project and the computer graphics and visualization group. And the project there is, one of the projects is called Ivory Forest. It's an open source framework aimed for experimentations on primates. The idea is really, it's a game where we have apes and we are essentially testing their social behavior and cognition. It's one challenge to write a user interface for a human, another challenge to do it for an ape in a way that is actually exciting for them. So it's quite fun for the developer, for the scientist, and pretty much for everyone involved. It's also a large collaboration between University of Amsterdam, Leiden, and Leipzig. Our role is to do the maintenance, refactoring, and add features, because this project has already started, I think, in bachelor years, and to prepare it also for open source release. Another example is from the PRB, or the Pattern Recognition and Bioinformatics Group, and it's called CropXR. This is a new project, newish project. It's a 10-year project with NWO funding aimed at enhancing the resilience of crops and preparing for climate change, whether there are droughts or flooding and the like. Our role at this early stage is to identify a cost-efficient solution for data management to meet the needs of everyone. And we have a large group of stakeholders here. There are 4 Dutch universities, in addition to some 20 European plant-based companies. And essentially, we want to enable researchers to manage, share, and process large-scale biological data at convenience. DIKE, the Delft AI cluster, is one of those infrastructure projects that we care about. This is an HPC cluster with focus on AI types of accelerators, GPUs for now. Our role is, on the one hand, is setting the governance policies and overseeing hardware acquisition and the expansion of DIKE, but then also providing services and extra related services that people need. For example, providing open on-demand interface for people to use the cluster better, providing monitoring tools that they were not originally in the cluster. But then also there is the direct user support, as in, this is my code, I want to port it into DIKE, I have no idea how to do that. There is also, of course, the training courses under this umbrella, but then also like engaging in the larger discussion within TU Delft and the future of AI infrastructure as a whole. And the 4th example here is Septon. This is also one of those large EU Horizon projects. It addresses gaps in IT network infrastructure for medical device security in healthcare centers. Our role, well, we have a dedicated RSE engineer with experience in IoT, in blockchain, and cybersecurity. And here the role is really about enhancing data exchange security between hospitals and researchers, ways for secure storage of this data set, and while preserving the privacy, and also detecting vulnerabilities in medical implants. That's the first aim, remember. The second is to train researchers, whether it's HPC, for example, and software development. So far, we have 5 courses. And essentially, our approach here is we would provide some training courses. We can sometimes do it independently, but oftentimes in collaboration with other teams at the university as well. The idea is really not to replace what is already there, but really complement it. We identify needs and priorities also by talking with researchers, having surveys around, and then making our selection accordingly. So far, we have 5 courses, some on HPC, from HPC 101 to like containerization, how to do scalable AI in HPC infrastructure, but then also on programming like Rust best practices. Our format is to have trainings in person within 1 day or less. Materials, we have been developing material using Quarto. This has been actually quite phenomenal in our workflow. Slides and website and handout were really designed like quickly, because ultimately it's really a markdown format, so you can just put content there, code and content together, publish it via GitLab, and then essentially it's open to the world if you like. We have a growing portfolio of training courses. This autumn, we maintain those 5, but then also we expand on Rust basics in addition to best practices. We also add another course on Python best practices, and we aim for repeated cycles of popular topics like going forward. The third pillar is to institutionalize knowledge, whether this is best practices, reproducibility, but then also on topics like infrastructure and using resources. This we do via walk-in support and standard templates and documentations. Some examples in terms of documentation is the website for our Delft AI cluster to the left, and also like documentation for our capture lab, how people are setting up experiments and the like. We are looking forward to our actual grand opening a little bit later in the month. And also templates for things like obtainer template that also has Conda and pip dependencies with it. So it's just a template, you change a bit, and then you are done with your obtainer image in a few minutes. Also some basic shell configurations that make your life easier as an HPC user. And a Python package template that allows you to go from, okay, this is my Python code to this is my Python package publicly available. Fourth pillar is a bridge to the library, ICT, data stewards, and the like, but then also other teams. It turns out that TU Delft, like many other universities, is a large university, and it's just impossible to know everyone, and you need someone who would guide you in the right direction. And this is essentially what the right team is doing. We do this within the right context, as in we have a project, and then we know who's responsible for that. If it's an HPC, then we know ICT, this is admins, the network people, the storage. If it's crop XR, we know like the different parties internally, but then also with other TU Delft teams, like the 40U research data. This is essentially a team that cares about, it's actually a collaboration between a few Dutch universities to make it easy to store data for the long term. Also the DCC, the Digital Competence Center, my colleague Yasil, maybe some of you have run into. And then also with other teams like the DHPC. This is a central team that also supports in terms of using the other HPC in the university. But then also we have other non-TU Delft teams that we collaborate with regularly. This could be entities like the eScience Center, SURF, and IRENT. So from both like government and similar support people to people who are who could be providing services for, let's say, testing cloud platforms and the like. So those are the 4 pillars, from executing projects, training researchers, institutional knowledge, and also bridging to other similar teams across the university. We have been doing quite good across these pillars. As a team, we have been an enabling driver for CS research at TU Delft. This also includes things like applying to grants, for example, where now you can really say, for this grant, I will have an RSE for this duration, and you will not have a lot of trouble finding your RSE later on. It also means that if you have leftover money in a specific grant, you can really easily find someone to use it within the time frame, which is typically very limited. Our approach to infrastructure, where we are focused on machines, peoples, and also policies governing those machines, has actually proven quite powerful, as we are now able to adjust, for example, different types of jobs on our cluster based on users' responses. And then proper support is actually a team. We are ultimately operating within an environment. We are not in isolation, and it's not enough that we know the technical solution to a problem. We really need to be able to route our environment effectively, and we need to have good connections with them. And finally, we are still young, and we are work in progress. Some of the areas that we need to learn more on is like things like formal project follow-up. Like what happens once a project concludes? How long should we wait between we assign a right engineer to another project, and do we allow this to run forever? But what is forever? Do we make it a different project because, well, the time was too short, or how do we really approach this? Another thing is also funding details. Not all types of grants allow you to actually have an RSE. So it's also another discussion. Maybe it's internal, maybe it's actually wider, but it's also something to keep in mind. And with this, I will actually thank pretty much everyone, the RSE committee for enabling us to be here and present, our team, right, and our leaders for giving us opportunities to explore different avenues, and for many of us, it was our first experience as RSEs. TU Delft at large, from our department heads who were very supportive of this support team that started from the bottom up, to also other support teams in the university that were also welcoming of the competition, if you like. And also, I thank all of you for your attention to this presentation.
Thank you very much for the interesting talk. We'll just give it a moment to get the questions up. I think there's been quite a few questions, so we could be here a while. Brilliant. Okay, so top question there. So what are the different grades at which RSEs, or junior, standard, senior, are hired, and what are the required qualifications for them, and how are they promoted? That's like 3 questions at once.
Okay, nice. It depends on the level of experience given RSE or an applicant has when they apply for the job. Some of the RSEs, when they came, they already had various experience that made them senior right away. But in reality, that is not something that we have figured out quite well. I don't know about the UK, but in the Netherlands, there is something called UFO. It's like profiles for different jobs and job categories. We have this well established for data stewards, but not for RSEs. And this creates all types of mess with HR in terms of when you hire someone new, what to do with them, which pay grade you put in them. And it's not exactly a pleasant conversation, but it's a work in progress. We are now part of the conversation in the Netherlands on terms of UFO profile, in terms of what is the situation of RSEs, but then also this serves as this input to HR in terms of how we evaluate, like how we take in new people and how we promote them as well.
Okay.
What are the qualifications for them? Well, typically we look for generalists, people who would fit in different roles, but then we look for specializations in areas that we identify as need across more than one section, so that the RSE could be of value to as many groups as possible.
Okay. And I think the final point was about promotion. And
so far, let's say this discussion has not matured, essentially because we are still too young to talk about promotion.
Okay,
but our idea is really to mimic at least the path of the data stewards.
Okay, so this is linked to the job definitions that you described. So it's more problematic for the RSEs because you don't have those standard job description.
Yeah, we don't have. Yeah. Okay. Essentially, now we are left to okay, we move people from, let's say, the 1 year discretionary, let's say, evaluation period to permanent contract if everything is well. But we don't have much beyond this at present.
Okay. Understood. Do other academic departments oh no, just a minute, let's go to the one that has one likes that's below it. So James is saying, I'd like to know more about how you got here. It's a very enlightened and sensible structure. What was the work like to persuade the university to take this up?
The needs. So the two professors, okay, well, I put Thomas, but then we had also another professor, Asterios, before. And it was very clear that even within computer science, there was a need for engineers on demand. They were just impossible to, it's impossible to hire a computer science person for, 3 months and actually get something with high quality. So quite often people would go for TAs. They are bachelor students. You are not necessarily getting the highest quality product, but then you are not paying them that much either. So it's like, sure, but it's what you can recruit. Then this made the discussion really easy that we need a team, a persistent team that we need. The other component is the funding part. Not the support we give is not really free. We take part of grants for things that are running long term, and if we are not taking support, if we are not taking funding for a project, it's because it's serving everyone in the department. So this made the conversation quite easy, actually.
Okay, cool. So what have we got here as well? Do other academic departments at TU Delft have similar RSE groups? If not, how do they access RSE support at the university?
In terms of embedded teams, perhaps not. But I think most departments would have someone disguising as an RSE, but then with a different name, like a software developer or like a scientific programmer or the like. But we do have a central support team, the Digital Competency Center. They are a team of RSEs and data stewards. For them, you access support via regular calls that happen. I think they have a call coming up like mid-September or I think October. And they would support you for 6 months to a year if you need. But then once their support finishes, it finishes. And it's for the entire university. So however large they are, they're not as large as the university. Yes, and they have other interesting stories as well.
Yeah, one of the things that's happened in the UK a bit with that sort of model is sometimes there's pressure for the groups like yours to end up under the umbrella of the centralized team. Is there any of that pressure, or is it just because it's so new, everybody's exploring?
We really don't like to be under the central. If anything, we are promoting the idea that each faculty should have at least one RSE team. With data stewards, we are already successful. Like there are actually 2 data stewards in each of our 8 faculties. And that's already a start. So I think we need, the case for dedicated RSEs is really, it should be easier to make given the situation.
Right, where have we got now? So two questions on the course, the training, the courses mentioned. So one about, are the courses graded or do they provide credit to the students? I'll let you answer that one first.
Okay, so courses, I think you mean training courses. For the first iteration, our idea was really to just try it out. So we did not really focus as much on giving credits for them. But for the long term, we are actually in discussion with the graduate school and how we can translate those to our offerings into graduate school credit. What we know so far is to get one graduate school credit, you need to provide a training, which is 12 hours long. It could be 8 hours of actual interaction with students, and then 4 hours of homework. We are trying to design some of our courses along these lines, but then it's still a discussion. It's likely that the courses we are providing in fall to be of this type, actually.
Okay. And a question from me, actually. So do you use existing material, for example, carpentries or code refinery for a training, or have you developed everything in-house?
I would say both, but then if the training is provided by the carpentries or the code refinery, the DCC have already good relations with them, and our mindset is really to not replicate what's already there.
Right. Where are we? Okay, so we've probably got time for maybe one more question or two, depending on how quick the answers are. So would you be able to say a bit more about how you've practically built connections with similar internal teams? How did you establish good relationships? And do you have regular meetings or informal contact as needed? So you mentioned there were other people in other departments.
Actually, all of the above. For example, with the system admins of our cluster, we have regular lunches each now and then. With the DCC, we are either, let's say, sometimes we join their meetings, sometimes we had a meetup in July as well. With team like DHPC, this is the support team for the other larger cluster in university, we have a meeting each 2 weeks. So there are regular meetings, but then also we know who to contact in those teams when we need to. So that helps. And we also benefit from their experience in the universities. I mean, some of those teams have existed for longer, so they know people better than we know them. And they are visible across everywhere.
Great. Oh, go on. We've got time for the last one up here. So thank you for an interesting talk. So that's the most polite question start that we've had this afternoon. Do you say no to a lot of projects requests? And if so, how do you decide which one do you say no to?
We do say no, unfortunately, sometimes. And we do advise everyone to really apply as early as you need support. Because let's say this moment of time, we are fully booked. It's just we are fully booked. But then we try to reach compromises. For example, if I'm working in a long-term project, it's really 2 years, for example, or 1 year long. And maybe someone wants support for only 1 month. Maybe we can have a conversation between the two PIs and then decide to take one of those RSEs with the right expertise to work for that duration. This has happened in the past. Or we try to schedule it at the quickest later point that we can. It's not no as in we don't want to do it, but it's right now maybe we don't have the capacity, we need to wait a bit. If we are at a conflict, well, that would make an excellent case to expand our team as well. So this also translates to hiring more people. Yes, because the reality is the concept is still new, even within the Netherlands, even that we have an e-science center and the like. So the need to hire more people, I think, it's good to see it coming from researchers as well.
It's definitely better than the problem of not having enough work, so it's definitely a positive. Okay, can we thank all of our speakers in this session again, please?